The keynote address will be delivered on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Social Development of the Republic of South Africa, and I'll just read her profile. Ms. Lindiwe Zulu Daphne Zulu is the current Minister of Social Development in the 6th administration of the Government of the Republic of South Africa. She is a member of the National Executive Commission and the chairperson of the African National Congress Subcommittee on International Relations. Unfortunately, she will not be here with us tonight, but she will be ably represented by the DG Ministry of Social Development in the person of Mr. Linton Mchunu. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make welcome Mr. Linton Mchunu to the podium. Great. Thank you, sir.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Are you well? I feel like I've been put into a very difficult situation here. I'm certainly not the lady on the screen. I work with the lady on the screen, though. My name is Linton Mchunu, as the program director indicated. I want you to turn to the person next to you and say, I'm glad I'm sitting next to you. This is why. Then I want you to say to them, I want to commit. Say this, say, I want to commit. Yeah, that's right. Say, I want to commit to doing much more to support AVPA. Now, for all the young people in the room, this is for you. Now, I want you to say to the person next to you, I also commit to write a check. Come on, to write it. Don't be shy. It's funny when we talk about money, it gets a little bit difficult, right? But let me start by saying thank you very much, Program Director, Master of Ceremonies, Ms. Glover, is it right? Let me greet the CEO of AVPA, Frank Aswani. We met not so long ago, a few months ago, and I think there was a connection that was made when we met and started talking about the important work that they're doing at AVPA. And immediately I said, this is the kind of stuff that we need to work with. As government, this is the kind of initiatives we need to partner with, and we're committed to do that. And a few months later, we're here. We've done some good work that we have put together, and we're going to be doing a lot more. So the commitment that you made is a real commitment on our part as the Department of Social Development in this country, which, by the way, has the largest budget than any other national government department, north of 263 billion rands. That's what we play with, for lack of a better word. So when I start talking those figures, if I have to translate that into US dollars, you would be shocked. And then you'll think, I need to see this guy, he has a lot of money, we need to talk. But you want the check. But in any case, that's what we do. Yes, the bulk of it goes towards social grants, but a significant amount also goes to other avenues, and I'll speak to those a little bit later today. Let me greet the captains of industry who are in the room this evening. Let me greet the CEOs of various companies, representatives from business formations, both here in South Africa and the rest of the continent, development finance institutions. I think some of them are here, or those who have worked in some of those institutions, and all the partners of the AVPA network. Representatives, I believe that there could be one or two representatives from academia and probably even civil society here who are gathered. And let me greet any other government representative who is here in the room this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you all, and what an honor it is to be in the midst of brilliance. And what an honor it is to be in the midst of, I feel like there's iron sharpening iron happening here. I feel like there is a divine intervention happening in this very small space. In my previous life, I used to be a preacher, so don't get mad if I get into another mode a little bit later. But the truth of the matter is, what I've heard here is completely blown my mind. And I wish we had more time, Frank. I wish we could do this more often. In fact, let me make a public announcement that we will support and sponsor the next engagement that AVPA hosts. You see, I have the power of being an accounting officer and I can sign off the checks. So hint, hint for those who want to have a conversation. But it is indeed a profound, profound audience that is here. And what a wonderful exchange of ideas, interaction, and brilliant, sort of learning experience and curves for some of us, Let me, before I get into the detail, let me really tender an apology on behalf of the minister. She wanted to be here, Frank. She really did. And unfortunately, last night, something came up that she couldn't put off. And she said, Linton, get on a plane and go to Cape Town. I was like, oh, my. I hadn't planned for this, but anyway, it is what it is. So she was scheduled to address you, but of course, as indicated, she had this challenge that she had to urgently deal with. But let me say that this is one of the areas that she and some of my colleagues who are here may attest to this, has dedicated much time and attention to. And to the organizers, I want to say, be assured that she indeed remains committed to this call and to the vision of unlocking new capital for social impact across Southern Africa, but also across the African continent. She's committed to this vision and this work, also because she was the very first Minister of Small Business Development in this country a number of years ago. And she brought across some very, very critical programs, particularly programs for women-led enterprises and for persons with disabilities. There's a fund that we started for persons with disabilities. Never been done before, specifically tailored for persons with disability. And we capitalized that fund, and it's now working and doing exceptionally well. But also because, so she understands the entrepreneurial space quite well, but also because she has a passion for women empowerment, especially through entrepreneurial programs. But she has also been exiled in different countries in Africa, in Uganda, in Angola, and different other countries. She spent a lot of time. In fact, just 3 days ago, we came back from the DRC. Anybody from the DRC in the room? No, you are. My brother, you have a wonderful country. And there's so much opportunities in the DRC that are being exploited, unfortunately, in some cases by external forces. But if we work together as African countries, we can do a lot more. If you think of Grand Inga, can power so many nations across the African continent. If you think of the lithium reserves, you have the most lithium reserves in the world. Battery technology is where the future is headed now. They have lithium, they have copper, they have, what else? Diamonds, my brother, you have so much. So we were with the president in the DRC, thank you, and an excellent program that was had there. But I just wanted to say that her and I had a wonderful opportunity of working with the African Union in developing the program Agenda 2063, as well as actually creating the terms of reference and working on the program of Presidential Infrastructure Championing Initiative, which talks around infrastructure programs across the continent, but also Agenda 2063, which points out Africa's blueprint for socioeconomic development overall. So we had the opportunity to work with the team towards developing that program on the whole. And if I could start there with an email that was drafted by the then chairperson of the African Union Commission, who crafted a letter entitled An Email from the Future, where she writes to Kwame Nkrumah in 2063. And this is the picture that she paints. She speaks of the noble aspirations of the future of Africa, and she points that in 2063, that is now, she speaks in the future, Africa is integrated with regional trade moving from 12% to 50% in 2030 to the continental free trade area and contributing to economic development where young people have jobs. She indicates that we're one of the fastest growing economies in the world now, with countries like Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, Ethiopia leading the pack. So high levels of economic growth are taking place. She talks about an Africa who is adding value to its mineral resources as opposed to selling it in its raw form. She talks about an African express rail which can travel across the continent in a matter of days, not only moving people, but also has a pipeline moving gas, water, and ICT broadband cables. She talks about the girl, child, and woman who have been consulted by agro-economists now running their own cooperatives and businesses and dominating the entire agricultural value chain and agro-processing value chain. And she talks about an article in some magazine who once referred to Africa as a hopeless continent, citing conflicts, hunger, disease, and poverty as if it was a permanent condition for the continent, and how this very same publication has since changed many years later and written another article entitled A Hopeful Continent, Africa Rising. She also indicates, it's okay, you can clap. She also indicates a very weird African paradox that exists, that Africa is rich, but its people are poor. And she says this doesn't make any sense and has to change. I want to say to you, Frank, and the rest of the team and the leadership of AVPA, what you're doing today with the launch of this very important program and this work that you are doing is squarely aligned to what the former AU chairperson wrote in that email from the future, and serves as a stepping stone towards reaching these aspirations through your noble aspirations to contribute towards the growth and development of our continent through collaboration, innovation, and social impact investment, especially when it comes to support for social enterprises and sustainable programs and projects. So what is unique about this platform and the work you guys are doing is that you're focusing on young people, and you're being deliberate about also supporting women-owned enterprises. And all the people you had on stage earlier, I noticed are only women and mostly young, so big up to young people. And the biggest challenges facing developing countries now is unemployment, especially for youth, and poverty, and in some cases even inequality. Of course, we must be conscious about rising social ills, such as gender-based violence, child abuse, trafficking of persons, early child and forced marriages. These are real. Genital mutilation, sexual violence, alcohol abuse, and substance abuse, amongst others. And these should move us to create and support social entrepreneurs who find innovative solutions to work with governments to address some of these challenges, including in the health, in the education, and in the social sectors. And I think those young girls, the ladies that were here, those entrepreneurs who were here, are doing just that. When I saw some of them in terms of the work that they're doing, I was really impressed about the work that they do. So it is a well-established fact, rather, that poverty, lack of income, as well as ownership of assets adds to women vulnerability to violence and reduces their opportunity to participate in economic activities. While various frameworks and protocols at a continental level are in place and protect and empower women and youth, the real strategies and tactics must come from platforms such as this. And this platform should contribute to innovative solutions and should provide sustainable access to capital, as raised by many of the entrepreneurs who were on stage earlier. So what Bayers was doing here earlier by providing support to women-led enterprises is actually increasing their participation in the economic space and improving investment in families and communities and ultimately reducing poverty. So big up to Bayers and the work that you are doing on that front. So we want to challenge other corporates. This is the time where you ought to clap. We want to challenge other corporates in the room to do the same. It's important. On our continent, we are told that we are a continent of young people, and it is certainly getting younger. With a much greater youth bulge expected in the future, according to the World Bank, Sub-Saharan Africa is home to more than 1 billion people, half of whom will be under 25 years by 2050, and a majority of whom will be women and girls. Africa is a diverse continent, ladies and gentlemen, offering human and natural resources that have the potential to yield inclusive growth and eradicate poverty in the region. With the world's largest free trade area of over 1.2 billion person market, the continent is creating an entirely new developmental path, harnessing the potential of its resources and its people. The Economic Commission for Africa states that the continent needs to create at least 12 million new jobs annually to manage the unemployment crisis on the continent, and Frank broke it down per hour, per minute. So there's a case to be made for government to invest in young people in order to reach the demographic dividend. Not just government, but also private sector and all sectors of society. And this means that in the next 50 years, we will need entrepreneurs who will employ more than 1 billion people, most of which will be youth. And we need to take decisive steps now and be deliberate about how we want to solve current and future problems, or what some have called wicked problems. Now, I often say that our number one poverty alleviation program should be entrepreneurship. I think that's quite important. And getting people to become active in society and doing things for themselves. In government language, we call it creating sustainable livelihoods. As government, we have created an enabling environment, and I think what Elias mentioned today is true. And I think that we've done okay. We could have done more, but we have created an enabling environment. If you think of how we've put programs in place to support SMME startups, cooperatives and so on, both from a funding and non-funding point of view. But I think we have done a lot. However, government alone cannot do this, and the kind of growth and development we require to address the challenges that we face as a continent requires collaborative approaches. And what we were discussing today is exactly what we need. Not just government, private sector, think tanks, academia, civil society, everybody needs to get together. Advancing a developmental agenda, and Program Director, I'm close to the end. Advancing a developmental agenda for our country and continent, and accelerating the goal to meet our aspirations of Agenda 2063, as well as the 2030 UN SDG targets, requires a solid ecosystem where partners can play in their strengths in achieving the greater good. Looking carefully at who is represented in the room today, I'm very confident that we have all the ingredients and insights required to respond creatively to the persistent challenges of youth unemployment and socioeconomic challenges facing our community in general. It's not always about money, although money has a huge part to play. It's also about genuine commitment to improve the quality of life of people. And I think that that's important. And I can see some of this coming out in the conversations that are being had today. And it's also about having solid programs that would attract the money. So many private companies we have engaged with, for example, both here and outside, always indicate that we want to assist and contribute towards addressing the challenges that you face. However, you have not packaged as government programs for us to be able to attract our investment or to fund programs. So this is something that I really want us to think about. And we as government have some ideas, and I'll talk to one or two just as I close. I want to thank so many of you in the midst today who are working closely with government to use all means, expertise, technological platforms, blended finance and marketing opportunities to make government work in support of the social cause, especially our social entrepreneurs. And we've just started a program on social entrepreneurship as the Department of Social Development. I think a lot of people think that when they think social development, the first thing that comes to mind is grants. It's not all that we do. We do much more than grants. We're actively involved in the entrepreneurial space. And we are being deliberate, together with the minister, around driving that because we think it's important. And for example, we spend over 8 billion rands annually in support of non-profit organizations that are part of our service delivery model. And almost 100% of these funds fall within the traditional grant offering. And this, which means that we give NGOs money, we don't expect them to pay us back. And this figure, or rather this falls within the traditional grant offering, and this figure can be estimated further in the northward direction when considering the rest of the government investment. The key question for us to answer is how can we use these resources to modernize the NGO sector and to de-risk the current investment and to crowd in new private capital for impact. I'd like us to have a much deeper conversation, especially with the panels that were up here, some of the colleagues who were here, around how we as government can, and working with private sector and philanthropists, can bridge capital towards this end. And I think, Elias, you started talking a little bit to that. As I conclude, let me remark that we are living in interesting times, a moment where there is a groundswell of corporate ideas driven by greater integration of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG as most know it, criteria in business and investing choices that favor collaboration with social enterprises. Private sector is searching for meaningful connections to bridge capital with patriotism, and this membership platform will certainly be a catalytic platform to have these conversations. Having said that, a lot still needs to be done by repurposing our current assets, reorientation of our institutions, and upskilling of available human resources to take advantage of the rising opportunities that Africa has. The President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa, made it clear that in the wake of the current social ills that befall us as a country, the government needs to work closer with the private sector to productively engage our current pool of unemployed social worker graduates. And you may have seen an article in the paper yesterday that talked about 9,000 unemployed social work graduates within the ESG space, and I think that we can have a conversation to that end. And I have no doubt that the combination of the insights generated today will lead us to the realization of this goal. I dare remind ourselves that our political governance, social and economic apparatus should work tirelessly to serve the collective interest of our people and to ensure that as partners, we provide them with a better quality of life. It is for this reason that I stand to be counted as a partner, my brother, to walk and talk the journey with you from today moving forward. And if I am to close, there are 3 aspects, just 3, maybe 4, that I would suggest that we do and be deliberate and be clear about this. 1, collaborate. Count us in as government. We have this issue around trust between government and the private sector. There's no time for that now. We have to work. We have a country to save. We've got people we need to get into jobs. We've got challenges that we need to fix. Let's forget about this challenge that we have around this issue of trust. Let's get the job done. So I'm saying count us in. We're in this together as government. Number 2, invest to grow the social economy. Very important, especially for youth and women. And I appreciate what has been done today. I think it's the step in the right direction. And if we can in any way expand the work that you're doing today, we'd do that. Number 3, foster innovation to address social issues. When I saw what the young lady is doing with ECD here, I was amazed. We've just signed a partnership agreement with the US agency to try and drive social programs in South Africa. They're already doing it in other parts of Africa. Why can we not take young entrepreneurs and turn waste into wealth? Our streets are dirty. They're filthy. Why can we not find innovative ideas within that space to support them, address the challenges of having untidy and dirty streets, but also give them a job and be able to assist them to create more money? That's just an idea. Lastly, be deliberate. It can't be business as usual. It has to be business unusual. And I'm saying that as government, we're here. We want to partner. There is no time for us and them. We have to collaborate, and we have to be deliberate. I thank you.